So at this point, I have been married to my second husband for almost 8 years now. Wow, time sure does fly. And what I want to share with you today are 6 ways that my second marriage is different than my first. One of the most important ways is in my first marriage, I believed in nevers. I believed that my first husband would never cheat on me. He knew how important honesty was to me. He knew how important fidelity was. And he always promised that he would be there for me and promised that he would never hurt me. Well, we know how that turned out. I also believed that I would never get divorced. And yeah, life had the last laugh with that one too. Well, I don't believe in nevers anymore. I don't say that my now husband would never cheat on me, even though I have no reason to think that he would. I don't say that I will never be divorced again, even though that is the last thing that I ever want. And I work hard every day to make sure that that doesn't become our outcome. But I also know that those things can happen. And what I've come to realize is when we say never, we're actually leaving ourselves even more vulnerable. Because when we say never, we're not an alert to it because we don't think that it is even a possibility. But when we say, yes, that is something that could happen, and it's something that I don't want to happen, then we are aware, we are watchful, and hopefully we can intervene before it becomes too late. In my first marriage, my ex-husband and I never argued. We really never even disagreed on anything. And at the time, I thought that was a good thing. I thought it was a sign that we were so compatible. But now I realize that really a lot of what we were doing was inadvertently avoiding the difficult conversations. That one and often both of us would work to actually avoid conflict, that we would say that we agreed with the other person or would simply not have a conversation just because it could have veered into some challenging territory. It's different with my now husband. There are times that we disagree. There's times that we strongly disagree on things. And it can be challenging sometimes, especially for somebody like me that can tend towards anxiety and can be panicked about being abandoned again. But I've learned that it's okay to disagree, that those challenging conversations don't mean that we don't love each other. They don't mean that we're not committed to each other. It just means that we are two separate people with two different opinions and perspectives, and that's okay. My first husband and I started dating when we were quite young, and we were each other's rock through some very, very difficult situations. And so because of that, I really thought I couldn't live without him. I had lost so many other people, and he was my constant. He was my one. I would say I can do anything as long as you're by my side. And there were really two challenges with that. The first was that it left me blind to any signs that he had been leading a double life, because the thought of being without him was so scary that my brain wouldn't even let me entertain that possibility. The other was then, well, when he left, I had to find a way to live without him. And I have a different mindset now. I have lived without my now husband. In fact, most of my life I've been without him. And even though I want him in my life until my last breath, I know that I can be okay if he's not there. And that doesn't mean that I love him any less. But what it does mean is that I'm not driven by fear. It means that I can see the relationship that I have. And it means that if I ever have to make that decision to walk away, then I know that I can do it and that I can still stand. In my first marriage, I felt like I had to be perfect. I had felt abandoned by my father in childhood. And so I felt like I needed to be kind of that ideal wife so that I wouldn't be abandoned by my husband. And it created this environment where both he and I always felt the need to be on our best behavior And unfortunately, it created an environment where he ended up hiding so much of what was going on because he didn't feel like he could share. And I have to credit my now husband with really changing my perspective on that. He is so good at admitting his mistakes and not overly internalizing them and not feeling too much shame around them. And I've learned from that. And so our relationship is so much healthier because it is an environment where mistakes are made and admitted and accepted. And it's just a normal part of being human. You screw up, you admit it, and you learn from it. And you know what? That is so much better than pretending that it never happens. I was convinced that I knew my first husband. After all, I'd met his grandparents. I knew his mother's maiden name. I saw his baby book. I knew everything there was to know about him. And so I was confident in that, cocky even. Oh, I know this guy even better than he knows himself. Well, turned out that wasn't true. And in my marriage now, I have a totally different perspective. I've been with my now husband for almost 11 years. We've been through quite a lot together. I can anticipate what he likes or how he's going to respond to something, but I don't assume. I give him the space to grow and change, and he gives me that space as well. Because even though we've been together for more than a decade, we are always getting to know each other. And finally, I want to share one thing with you. In the early days of dating my now husband, I had one of those freak out moments where I was afraid that I was going to be abandoned again. And he sent me this picture. And it meant so much to me that I printed it and it now sits on our mantle. And I'm going to read to you what it says because I think this encapsulates what a healthy relationship is. It says, in this house, we are real. We make mistakes. We say, I'm sorry. We give second chances. We have fun. We give hugs. We forgive. We are family. We love. And this to me is the reminder that we are a team, that it's not always easy, but that it is worth it.